Welcome everyone to APA 7 and the beginning of what we hope is our last completely virtual semester. Knock on wood, I'm hoping. But whether we're face-to-face or virtual, APA 7 is with us always. So what I'd like to begin with is just hearing from y'all, either turn on your mic or put it in the chat. I'm curious as to, like, as we say, where you are with APA 7. Are you very comfortable with it? Are you still, are you trying to figure out the difference between 6 and 7? Have you always been confused with APA? Tell me where you are with APA. What are you hoping to get out of today's session? So mic's open or chat, go. Okay. I like the differences. They seem easier, but not confident with it. Yes, some of the changes are actually better for students. The main thing I see with APA 7 is an acknowledgement that students are actually writing papers, that not all writers are writing for publication. So that it's like, thank you, finally. How to properly grade the papers. Yes, Gregory, I will definitely be looking at some of those. Welcome, Daisy. Okay, let's see what else we've got. We're just talking about what everyone hopes to get out of today's session. What about APA? Where are you? Are you comfortable with it? Are you still learning it? Some people, like John, uses AMA, so may not be at all familiar with APA, so he has no baggage that we have to worry about. We're going to teach him from scratch. Okay. Yeah, right. Unlearning 6. Well, there's a few things, Susan. Don't worry, it's not going to be hard. I'll point out some of the differences. Need to learn 7. Yep. Like I said, the changes are better for students. So I like the changes that they made this time. They're not major. Every time someone tells me, well, I knew APA in school, but they've changed everything. No, they haven't. The only things that truly change through the years are as technology changes, but the reasons why certain things are the way they are doesn't change. You know, the whole point of APA is to make it easy for a reader to understand what you're saying and to follow where you got your information from. That's the main reason for APA. And that's what I try to explain to students, is that it's rules that if you follow them, you send secret clues to your reader. This is an author. This is a publication date. Because I put it here and I put it there, this tells the reader certain things. That never changes. All that changes is now that we have all these new technologies, they say, well, here's how you're going to cite that new technology. So that's really the only thing that really changes. Granted, the title pages change, but only this time because they now do student applications rather than just publications. So let's see, differences, learning differences, tips on grading. Yes, we're going to talk about tips on grading, sure. When it comes to grading, as the instructor, you yourself need to decide what things you want to emphasize with your students' writing. If you want to make sure that they are just communicating clearly, you might not be as a stickler for where the period is or the comma is in the citation. If you're truly trying to make sure that they are ready to move on to graduate or to transfer, and they really have APA down, then you do want to be more strict about your APA grading. But you really have to kind of decide based on what you're teaching and what you want your students to get out of the experience as to how strict you want to be. You might point out some mistakes while not marking off for them just so that they'll learn. But the biggest tragedy I see is when students submit an APA paper and the teacher is just grading for content, doesn't look at APA at all, and ignores mistakes, and then the student moves on to the next class thinking, oh, I must have gotten it all right, so I'll keep doing this, and it was all wrong to begin with. That's the problem. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of us got through school. You know, this teacher passes and that teacher passes, and we finished and we thought we were doing it right, and then you go read the book and you say, oh, wow, I was doing it wrong the whole time. I didn't know that. So if you're lucky, you keep getting passed, but you're always going to hit that one teacher that's going to be a stickler like me who says, nope, that's not APA. And so we're going to teach you the right ways. So let me welcome everybody that's just joining us. Let me share with you one document that I have, and I think I had it pulled up here. I had it saved. Yes, and I will share this document with you on the screen, and then I will also put a link to it in our chat, so you will have a copy of that as well. So that I'm going to be sharing is, I'm just going to share my desktop. That's what we're going to do because it's just going to make it easier. So it is changes. Okay. So here's the document on the major changes between APA 6 and APA 7. If you're not familiar with APA 6, and this is all new, but the biggest changes, I pulled out the biggest ones that impact student papers. So the biggest changes are in the publication information in your references page, you no longer have to put the city and state of the name of the publisher. Not a big deal. So that's pretty easy. It's less to write, so that's even easier. With the in-text citation, the number of authors that you have to actually include in the in-text citation is lessened. So if it's one author, it's always one. If it's two authors, it's always two. If it's three or more, it's always first author et al. Thank goodness. This is so much easier than first time it's that and second time it's this. It's always first author et al. For three or more. In the references, now we have to list all the way up to 20 authors in the references. You would never, ever, ever put et al. In a references list. That has never been the case. If you have more than 20, you list the first 20, and then you'll see that you do an ellipse, ... and then the last author. But you never put et al. In the references list. So it's always going to be the first 20, ... last author there. The DOIs, now that DOIs are more common, they no longer have to be labeled. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, DOI is an acronym for the Digital Object Identification Number. And kind of like a book has an ISBN, or your car has a VIN, or you have a student ID, these are identification numbers for articles. Not all articles have them, but I would say the better research articles do. So if you're requiring that your students actually use better resources, then they're going to have a DOI. So in the past, you actually had to label DOI : and the number, and now because they all look like acronyms, they look like web links, now it just says HTTPS, and it will usually link out to a record of the article, maybe not the full article if the full article is still for sale.
Hey, Danielle.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt for a second. Would you mind zooming in on the document a little bit? It's very hard to see.
Absolutely. Let me see. I can do view, and let's do one page. Okay, and we'll zoom in some more. How about 200? How's that? Is that better?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for jumping in. Yeah, sorry guys, but when I have it on here, I can't see your chat. So I'm gonna need you to turn your mics on and let me know. Just jump on in. Okay, so the next one, number 5. URLs are no longer preceded by retrieved from in the references. You don't have to say retrieved from anymore. Again, that's better. That's less words we have to type in. So now you can just jump right into the web address. That makes it a lot easier. For ebooks, the format, platform, or device is no longer included in the reference, and the publisher is included. So you don't no longer have to say like Kindle version or anything like that. You just say the name of the publisher and then the DOI from there, if it's a digital one. So a couple of things that are exciting. I really, really, really like that they have finally solved the issue of the singular they. And for any of you word nerds out there like me, this has been an issue for a very long time. As we, as a society, become more socially aware of how people prefer to be addressed, having the fact that English has no singular non-gender specific pronoun has always been an issue. It had to be he or she when there was a singular pronoun. Now APA has finally come on board and recognized the usefulness of singular they. So when the gender of the person is unknown, or if that person prefers to not be identified one or the other, they can be used to identify a single person. So this is a big, big thing. Chicago adopted that a couple years ago, and APA's finally come around on that. This is very important when they're referring to studies, when they're doing randomized controlled trials and you have people involved and you don't know the gender of the person. So now you can refer to a single person as they are there. So that's a big, big difference right there. I think also when we bring that up and we make students aware of it, it also makes them a little more conscious of their use of pronouns and whether or not one pronoun is more appropriate than another. So that's been very positive. So let's see, instead of using adjectives as nouns, label people, descriptive phrases are preferred. So I don't know that this is really new. APA has always tried to really be very non-insulting, I guess you will, because the nature of the study is that you want to make sure that you treat everybody fairly and equally. So rather than saying someone is poor, you might say it's someone living in poverty. So that would be the difference of that. Unless our students are truly doing original research, this probably doesn't come up as often as it would if they were, or if they're writing for publication. Instead of broad categories, you should use exact age ranges that are more relevant and specific. So instead of saying elderly, you might say people in the age range of 65 to 75. So it's a little more specific. So in the format itself, so those things were style, which APA has style and format and how it looks, and style and what you say. So the use of words versus the format of how it looks. So in the format, APA 7 now allows for 5 different fonts. So it doesn't have to be 12-point Times New Roman anymore. Now we have a little bit of flexibility, which is great since Microsoft Word defaults to Calibri 11. So without changing anything, you're already automatically APA compliant by just starting a new document. Now, if you want to go crazy a little bit, you can certainly change them, but Calibri 11, which is default in Word, is now an acceptable font. The running head on the title page no longer has to include the words running head. For those of you who don't know, APA's format was designed for people who wrote articles that were going to be published in professional journals. The running head was to indicate to a publisher, these are the words I want at the top of every page of your magazine. And when we're talking about student papers, that's not really relevant. Yes, it's nice like an MLA if the last name is there so that one paper gets separated, you can put them back together. But now we're submitting so many papers digitally, that's not really an issue anymore. So now you just need a page number at the top of the page. You no longer need the running head. So we can do that. And the short and paper title. Okay. The running head is omitted in student. Okay. The running head and title. Actually, sorry, let me back up. If you're writing for publication, you just need the title of your paper. If you're a student, you only need the page number, unless the instructor tells you otherwise. So you guys, final word is with y'all. You can set that with your students, but anything you change with APA, if you say, well, I know that's APA, but I prefer this, please let the student know that that is your preference and not an APA rule. Because again, we don't want a student thinking, well, that's APA, and they go do it in the next class and they get marked off for it. So if you make any changes to APA, let the student know that that is specific to your class only. All right, the next one, let me just see. Only use one space after a period. Okay, we have the APA again. All right. Oh, this is a change here. It used to be when you had a word that you wanted to kind of highlight, you would put in italics, and now they actually ask that you put it in quotation marks. So, the rule does still exist that you only do that the first time you use the word special, but if you repeat that term again in the paper, there's no need to continually put it in quotation marks. You've already indicated to the reader that this word has been defined or is unusual, and then you can just stop using, you can drop the quotes for the rest of the paper. So those are the main changes for APA 7. Are there any questions, or do you want me to refresh anything in there? Let me go back to you guys. Questions? Let me see. Let me check the chat. Yes, you can get a copy of this. I will totally give you a copy. Absolutely. Any other questions? Let me see who we've got here. We have Victoria. Victoria, open up your mic and shout out or put something in the chat. What do you want to know?
Hi, everybody. I wanted to ask about, because APA does it in different ways. I understand there's new, but is it included in the 7th edition that they can still do titles, meaning that introduction, I'm thinking of how nursing journal articles are written, where we have an introduction and then it states literature review, where it should be pieced out that way. And I find my students not doing that. It's one continuous document, and I have a heck of a time trying to get them to understand that they need to have the headings like it would be in a journal article. However, they tell me that when they get help, that this is the way they're told to do it. So I don't know exactly where they're getting help, but I need to clarify.
Okay, I can clarify that for you.
Corrected my thinking, because I'm that I'm old. You can tell by looking at me.
Oh, you're not. I can do that. Okay, so you are referring to headings. Headings in APA 7, it literally says are not required for student papers. Not required. It doesn't say they're forbidden. You can certainly always use headings. Always use headings. The idea is usually that depending on the length of the paper, the complexity of the subject matter, if you really are distinguishing between different like chunks, if you will, of the content, then anything that helps the reader flow with your, like helps your message flow is useful. And you would never have a heading that says introduction. There is no such heading that says introduction, so you can leave that one out. The first paragraph is the introduction. It's assumed to be the introduction, so there's never a heading for that. Everything else, that is totally up to you as an instructor. If you want your students to have headings, say so. They cannot read your mind. You must say that specifically. I want headings. Many times when I'm working with the nursing students, if I see the assignment says cover things like symptoms and etiology and conclusion, I say, look, there's your headings right there. They
Yes,
will bring it out. Use that for your headings. Yes.
I wanted them more to use headings to get them to where they don't forget pieces that are supposed to be included in the paper.
Right.
And
it's
so
kind of like
if they go through the rubric and put a heading there for each piece of the rubric, then it helps them that way. So I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't too far back in the, the Stone Age,
No,
the mountains behind me there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
that's what I wanted to make sure of.
Yeah, and I know that there's been some confusion. I've talked with other instructors who thought that headings were a requirement. They're not required. They are preferred, but particularly for papers that have chunks of information. Sometimes the paper is just intro, body, and conclusion. Well, a headings just kind of seems superfluous there. If it's a one-page paper, maybe you don't need a heading. But
Yeah.
if your assignment literally says these are the subjects I want you to cover, well, there's your headings right there. And you can tell students that use these as your headings. Like you said, that does help them make sure they address each of the issues you want addressed in your paper. So make sure that they get all of those. So does that help?
Yes, thank you very much, Nell, as always.
Absolutely. Any other questions before I move on to my next document? Any other questions about the changes between 6 and 7? Okay, so I have another document for you, and that is, let me just see, where is it? I have my, not the template. I thought I had it opened. Okay, well, we're just going to go, I mean, you see my little thing here. Okay. So this is, oh, wrong link. Okay, so this is a website, my research guide for my nursing program, where I have everything that they need, and I go to APA, and I'm going to share these documents with you as well. In the APA overview, y'all are asking for some grading documents. This is kind of what I would use to grade, if you will. It is, I hope y'all can see this. It is a PDF of a literal kind of example of an APA 7 paper. In the bubbles are common mistakes. So if you look at this and you kind of get used to it, you would say header includes page numbers only. Well, that's what I'm looking for. Is it more than a page number? Well, that's wrong. Is there more or less than one blank double line space between the title and the name? If not, then there's wrong. That's wrong. So these bubbles give you very specific things to look for in the format of APA 7. So you will see that the title page is different than APA 6. This is a big difference. Now we have the name of the student, the name of the school, the course number and title, the name of the instructor, and the due date. This is the biggest change to the title page between 6 and 7, because again, 6 was about writing for publication, where it was just the title of the paper, the name of the person, and the entity they were representing. That was it, which was not very helpful for school. But so now this is really good. One thing that I've noticed for a lot of people when it comes to writing an APA or any format is learning how to use Word properly. That can save you a lot of time. If you are not yet familiar with the page break tool, I suggest you learn to use the page break tool. Rather than starting a new page with enter, 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 and then you make a change and then everything shifts and suddenly the beginning of the page is not where you want it to be. To start a new page, you just go Control, Enter, boom. new page. No matter what changes, that is always a brand new page. So that is the best way to start a new page. So again, you will see here that I've got things like 1-inch margins, the 5 acceptable fonts. We go to page 1, every paragraph is indented a 1/2 inch. The title of the paper is bold, centered, and title case. If you have a heading, level 1 headings or heading, level 1 heading 1 is bold, centered, and title case. Now, I don't, many of you may know this, students do not understand heading levels. They don't understand outlines. They don't understand levels. They think the second heading is a level 2, even though it's still a level 1. So they think it must go underneath. So they don't understand the difference between level 1, level 2, or Roman numeral 1, capital letter A, you know, those things. They just don't quite understand that. So you may see a lot of level, first heading is this, second heading is that, because they misunderstand levels and what comes first and what comes second. So this is my little cheat sheet here to help you out with level 2 headings used to indicate a subsection. I try to kind of explain how APA works in there if anybody bothers to read it. I have examples of an in-text citation with author, comma, date, noticing that the period is after the parentheses, not before and after. Quotes are in quotation marks, and this is 3 or more words directly from a source. Page numbers are only required with quotes, but they are optional with paraphrasing. I do, however, tend to tell students to not put a page number when they paraphrase, because I don't want anyone to be confused that, oh, there's a page number and there's no quotation marks, so they forgot to put quotation marks, they plagiarized, it's wrong. Because it's not wrong to use page number when you paraphrase. Oh, somebody turn the mic on. Question. Anybody? No? I thought I heard a mic. Come on. Okay. So I tend to kind of steer students away from using a page number when they're just paraphrasing, so that there's no confusion about this is a quote, this is a paraphrase. So that's kind of, it's not wrong to do it, but I try to steer them the other way. If they are using the author's name as a narrative, with it meaning in the text of the sentence, like, for example, according to Smith, the date always comes immediately after the author, and then you go on with the sentence, and you don't have to cite it again. 1 citation per sentence is all that you need. It's either going to be narrative or parenthetical, beginning of the sentence or end of the sentence. If it's a direct quote with a narrative, then the page number goes at the end of the sentence. So that's the only time you would split them up. Let me just see. And it's always the author in this in text. It's not going to be the title unless there is no author. But I do point out to students that an entity can be an author, like Centers of Disease Control and Prevention is an author. So that would be CDC, and you never use the acronym until you define it, but CDC are in the date. So should always be author. They should not be using the title of the work or any other publication information in the text of the paper. That is what the references page is for. The in-text is only to tell the reader which source in the references it's referring to, which is why the references need to be in alphabetical order so that the reader can say, Smith, let me go down A, B, C, D, O, S. That's the source right there. If you're going to give me all the information about the source in the paper, you don't need a references list. And it shouldn't say in the book called blah, blah, blah by so-and-so, published in 25. I mean, that's just taking the whole place of the references page. It's distracting to the reader. It stops the flow of the text. All that information goes on the references page. In text should only be author, date, and maybe page number, unless you're quoting directly. So let me just see what else we got in here. Any quote that is longer than 40 words, so that means 41 plus, should be indented 1/2 inch from the left completely, no quotation marks, period, and then page number, and you usually introduce the author at the beginning. So according to the American Psychological Association 2020, colon, open, you start the quote there, close it with page number, and then you start the next paragraph. And let me see, going down to references page. I've had a lot of people ask me about references, and they ask if, when you have a source with multiple authors, do you alphabetize the authors in that source? And the answer is no. The order of the authors are in the order of who did the most work. So who's the star? who did the most work in this group project. They come first. Don't rearrange them. There's no need to rearrange them within the source. It's when you list multiple sources that you alphabetize by the first name in the list. So don't rearrange the names within the citation. Just put them in the order that they appear on the original item. And it's always last name, comma, first initial, and middle initial if provided. If it's a hyphenated last name or a double last name, do not change it. That's their person's name. They get to decide what it looks like. And that must match the in-text exactly. If the reference is double or hyphenated, the in-text should also be double or hyphenated. It must match exactly. Let me see. So then we have the title of the article. So you have author date, then title of the article. This would be like a journal citation. The title is in sentence case. That refers to which words we capitalize in a sentence, which is the first word, a name, or an acronym. So you would have to decapitalize or uncapitalize, making my own word here, everything except the first word, a proper name, or an acronym in the title of the article. Now, if we then go into the title of the journal, you do title case, meaning you capitalize all the major words, comma, volume number only, not the word volume, just a number. Those things are in italics, open parentheses, issue number only, just the number, close parentheses, comma, page numbers only, period. And you will see title and volume are in italics. Everything else is not in italics, period. And then you have a DOI or a web address, and we no longer have to put retrieve from before that. So that's a whole citation. The only difference here, if this was a book, is that would have author date. The title of the book would also be in title case, and it would be in italics because it's a big thing. I always look at it as little things or regular font, big things are in italics. So a chapter would be regular, a book is italics. An article is regular, the journal is italics. A song would be regular, an album would be in italics. So is it a big thing or a little thing? So a piece of a whole is regular font, and then the bigger thing is in italics, and that's the little signal that you're giving to your reader. This is a part of something bigger, and that would be all that you need to do. All citations are in hanging indentation. Everything is double spaced with no space between anything in a paper. Everything is double spaced, and I will share this document with you, but it's also always available on my websites as well. One other thing that I always share with students is an APA 7 template. And so this is a Word document that they can open up, and it's already formatted. They just fill in the blank. They even have, well, for my nursing ones, I already have Department of Nursing. They don't even have to change that. And then they can go through here, and I have it all formatted for them, and they can kind of go into there. So let me jump back into you guys. Questions, comments, thoughts? What else do you need to know? Have I brought up any issues or addressed any issues? Open your mics, chat.
I just wanted to clarify that all punctuation goes outside the parentheses.
Yes, the theory is that the citation goes inside the sentence to which it's referring. So if you put a period before it, now that citation is going to the sentence afterward. So it has to go inside the sentence. So if it's at the end of a sentence, then the period goes after the citation. Yeah, it has to go in the sentence. That tells your reader which sentence you're referring to. Thank you, great question. Any other question? So you were asking about grading, tips on grading APA papers. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you very much, Kelly. Tips on grading APA papers. So I don't know how much of a word, wizard you are. Lori called me a word wizard earlier today. So I was going to show, if y'all are interested, I will show you a few tips that I use for grading papers. So one thing, let me pull up this one right here. So when I'm looking at a student's paper right here, let's say this is the references page, I always start with format first because I can quickly go and say, okay, margins look good, page numbers there, it's in bold, there's a space, and if I want to see where my spaces are, I click on this little paragraph marker right here, show hide, and I can see every time they hit the enter key. Hit it once, that's a double space. Hit it here, and it also tells me why things lay out the way they do. I can see they hit the tab key was hit here, and the little dots are space bar. So even though you don't see these things on the page, they do take up space on the page. And so if you've ever accidentally printed a blank document and you wonder why, I'll bet if you turn this on, you would see a bunch of what we call hard returns. You'd see a bunch of these right there. So when I turn this off, you can't see them, but why is there a blank page there? Well, because you hit the enter key a bunch of times, you never deleted it. So you're just gonna go here and delete, and all those spaces are gone. Hang on, let's see, we got a, nope, no question. Okay, so let me go back to that document here. So once I've looked at the format to make sure that's all correct, I want to check their in-text citations. So let me pull up, I think I have, it's this one that has some citations. Nope, sorry, wrong one. Oh, I thought I had one still open. Oh, it's right here. Yeah, in here. So when I have like an actual paper, I would go down to the references page. Once I check the references page, I would be looking for these names in the paper just to see that they have cited everything listed in references correctly and that they've all been mentioned at least once, because every reference has to be mentioned at least once in the paper somewhere. It could be more, but at least once. And then every in-text must be listed in the references. They cannot read something where that person cited somebody else and only attribute to that person. That's an indirect quote. APA rule says you cannot use an indirect quote if the original is available and available in English. And the odds of those two things happening are very slim. Sometimes there's an article that we at the library don't subscribe to, but you got to try. You have to at least try to track down the original source, read it for yourself, add it to your references list, and then cite that. So the only time you would be able to get away with not doing that is if it's out of print, we can't get a hold of it, it can't be translated, which of course computers can translate now, so that's not even an excuse. And then if that all applies, we can't get a hold of it, then you could actually say Smith 2020 as cited in the article that you read, but only if you can't get a hold of the original article. So indirect quotes, just you can't do them. That's indirect. That's not APA. Okay, so I can't search on that one. So we're going to do this. We're going to go to this article right here. So let's say I'm looking for any mention of Mackenzie in the paper. I would double click the name. I would click Control F, and it's going to find me every occurrence of Mackenzie in the paper, and I can jump right to it. So I didn't actually mention it in here. So let me just go and do one here. So if I were to do Mackenzie 20, right there. Okay. So if I'm searching for them, now I can go right to that citation. Oh, I see you got Mackenzie 2020. Oh, but look, Mackenzie has two authors. So the in-text should be Mackenzie and Chang, and it should be 2015. And this one says 2020. So that would be two mistakes. It's only one author and it's the wrong date. And that's how I would go through each one. I often see things where they have misspelled it. And so I'll sometimes, if I'll search for the first name and I can't find it anywhere, I'll look at the second name because they've hopefully got one of them right. And then I say, oh, okay, well, that was just misspelled. And so then what I normally do for students, because what I don't grade the paper, but I do review the paper for students, and I'll send it back with comments. So another little word trick that I'll do is I would do, I'd go to the section where there's a problem, and I would go to review, new comment. And I would say missing one author, wrong date. And then when the student gets it back, they'll have that comment. They would have to go to the review tab right here at the top, click on tracking and make sure, I'm sorry, not tracking, sorry. All markup, track changes right there. Or if they only see it as no markup, if they get it like this, they'll have to go here and do all markup. They'll see the comments in the right, and when you hover, it points right to the area where there's an issue, and they can make that change. And if they've done it, they can right click and delete the comment. Once all those comments on the side are gone, the paper is all corrected, and then they can either submit it or add to it or however they want to do it. Those are some of the ways that I use to grade the papers. I just find it's easier. I don't want to make any changes for students. I just want to point to where they are so they can go back and do it themselves. And sometimes if it's the same mistake over and over and over, I still point them out because I want them to see it's here and it's here and it's here. Don't miss them. You did it again, you did it again, you did it again. So I just copy paste the comment from there. So they don't have to keep doing that. And I'll tell them about spacing and margins and things like that. So that's kind of some of the tips that I use for marking up APA. Any other questions or comments? If anybody would like to send their students to me for APA review, I'm happy to review papers. Just keep in mind I'm one person. We do have Catherine here from the Writing Center. Yes, Catherine, are you? Am I putting you on the spot? Will you be willing to help out?
Yeah.
And Sean from the Writing Center, of course. You know, I'm sending more people to y'all.
We're happy to help.
Yes. And of course, Pamela works with me in the library. Pamela, are you comfortable working on APA? Are you still an MLA girl?
I'm mostly MLA, but I can work on the APA in a pinch.
Okay, so there's a lot of help, whether you want some help just for yourself or you want to send your students to the Writing Center or to the library. You know, we'll do our best to help out. If you want us to build you a website, a LibGuide, a research guide, and you want to add these APA resources to your guide, we're happy to do that. I'm happy to share that with everybody. And I will be posting those in the chat in just a minute. So any other questions or comments? Did I answer all of your issues?
Danelle, do we still have the link to that video on the APA formatting?
Of course. Thank you so much. So the Writing Center and Catherine involved, and I were involved in a project this past semester. Hang on, I'm going to get it in here. On evidence-based practice for nursing, and they created the most amazing video on APA right here. And it is writing the format, and they even created like quizzes to go along with it. So your students or you can watch the video, and they talk about writing style. And I love they have something on, oh, what did y'all call it with the cost of the words? What did you call that?
Writing tight.
Well, you're writing tight, but would you call it like the words? If you put a money value on every single word, you want to be cheap. Which I love that analogy that fewer words are better. The thing with APA is it is a very unique style. It is not narrative. It's not flowery, and it's not unlike MLA where it's more for the humanities. APA is more for your sciences. It's get to the point. Don't say 3 words where you could have said 1. Don't repeat yourself. So it's how you use it. Oh, that's another thing I want to point out. I'm so sorry. Let me bring up my my website again. You know, putting all together an APA, these are some of my style rules. Now, there are a lot more, but these are the 12 that I feel that community college students should be responsible for. They should be able to handle these 12. The first is, unless you did the research or it's your own opinion, you don't use first person. There should be no I, me, my, we, our, or in the new second person, you or your, and not even implied you. You shouldn't even say, you know, check the patient's temperature. It should be the nurse should check the patient's temperature, always third person. We do not use contractions in APA. We cannot use an acronym until we've defined it. So once you define it, then you can use it all you want. If you're not going to use the acronym again in the paper, don't even bother introducing it. Just spell out the word and keep going. Sentence structure should be short and direct. Primarily use active voice, not passive voice. This may be a little tricky for those of you who are not English majors, but you can get the hang of it. So I have an example. The doctor administered the medication is active, whereas the person doing the action comes first, the subject, the verb, and then the object of the action. The reverse is the medication was administered by the doctor. The most common thing I see is a study was conducted. That is wrong. Researchers conducted a study, because you got to tell the reader who did the research. So you got to start off with that. We do not want to use anthropomorphization. If that's a new word, welcome to the Disney world. Things that are not human cannot have human-like abilities. A book cannot say it does not have a mouth. An article cannot say. A study cannot say. Data cannot conclude unless you're referring to data on Star Trek. But you have to make sure that you're not giving human abilities to non-human things. In APA, it is always preferred to say the author did, researchers thought, studied, said, whatever. Refer to the people, not the format where you found the information, because that's irrelevant. I don't care that it was from an article or a book or a website. Tell me who did what. And that's more important. So that's the next thing there. Don't refer to sources by format. So don't say the book said or in the book. You just say Smith 2018 said or Jones study. We don't want to repeat ourselves. So the biggest thing I see is a confusion between summary and conclusion. A summary means let me restate everything I just said. A conclusion is, let me tell you something new based on what I just presented. And because APA is generally used in your sciences, you think of the scientific method. You have the reason you're doing the study, how you did the study, the results of the study, and what that means. That's the conclusion. You don't say, here's why I did the study, here's how I did the study, here's the results of the study, let me tell it to you all again. That's not helpful. So your conclusion is a conclusion. You've concluded something based on what was presented. So that's the difference between summary and conclusion. Pronouns, that's the big one. Now that we have the singular they, we can certainly do that. In my example here, I see students do this all the time, like the nurse took the patient's temperature, she then left the room. Well, who left the room? Well, now you can say they left the room, but the reader's still confused if you meant the patient or the nurse. So you really want to make sure that you're clear about that. We want to try to avoid colloquial or informal phrases, or on the other hand, overly scientific, where so only a few people would even know what that word meant. So we want to make sure that we're sounding formal, but not stuffy, so that the reader can understand it. And we want to spell out numbers less than 10 unless it's part of a percentage or to indicate time, or like in nursing, a dosage amount or something like that. So those are just some of the style rules right there. Again, those are on my website. I can add it to your website if you want, and I can share all of these documents with y'all if you would like. And let me go back to that video that the Writing Center did, and we can make sure that you guys have access to all of that too. So there. So Catherine, y'all have the quizzes for all. They've got some great handouts for the video right here that goes through everything. They did such an amazing job with this video. So I can share the link to this. I'm gonna share the link to this one page. I know that they can share it with you from the Writing Center, but this is just a link to my EDP website. So you've got that there. Okay, Mary, I hope that helps with the grading tips. Yep, okay. Just some, because I look at so many papers in a day. I mean, like literally so many papers. I had to do something really quick because I don't have time to go into a lot of detail. So there's a link to the video. Let me link out to, I think we just have a few more minutes. If anybody has any more questions, I will link out to, let me just stop sharing. If y'all have any questions or comments or thoughts, let me know if you think this is going to be helpful for you. Oh, good. Thank you. And of course, I'm always here if you have questions. Mary Blue, one of my favorite nursing teachers, before she left us, not left us, she died, she retired. She's great. She would be, after reading a bunch of papers one day, she would always call me and she would take a photo with her phone, take a picture of her computer screen and just say, I can't tell anymore, is this right? Because she said she'd be seeing so many bad papers after a while, she was questioning whether she knew APA. And I'm like, no, Mary, that's wrong. You got that right. So I'm here. If you need me, I'm here. Just however I can help with APA. And if I don't know the answer, I'll look it up. I keep the book on standby, so it's always here. Let me get these documents for y'all. Oh yes, and Jeanette just popped in with the evaluation. Thank you, Jeanette, because I would have forgotten. So I will go ahead, after this meeting closes, I can still post in the chat, and I'm going to post the link to those other documents for you. Like I said, if y'all want them on your website or anything, let me know and I'll send you the link to everything. But I think we only have a few more minutes. So any other questions? Oh, Kathy, you're just joining us.
Sorry, Teams making Microsoft Teams ran over.
How ironic. The team meeting about Teams ran over. So Kathy, I'm just sharing some of the resources with APA because we're just wrapping it up. But did you have any specific APA questions?
No, I was just wanting to come in and hear the latest and greatest from the greatest.
Oh, thank you. I do have the document of the changes between 6 and 7, so I'm going to share those in the chat. I'm going to post that, plus my my little grading sheet, my outline, my template, all of that. I'm going to post in the chat so you guys have access to that even after the meeting is over.
Have you already updated your site, all of your library APA site and everything?
Oh, yes. I did that last semester. Oh, yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
And get on 7. Yes. Yes. Even Purdue Owls on 7 now. There should be no more 6. Ooh, no. 7 is better for students anyway, so you definitely want to adopt 7 as quickly as possible. Yeah, it's much better.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, if nobody has any other questions, I thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was helpful. I'm always available if you need me, and I will post those documents in our chat. So enjoy the rest of your week, and hopefully you all have a great semester. So